Hamas accepts draft agreement for Gaza ceasefire release of hostages. Has accepted agreement for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and release of dozens of hostages. Two officials involved in the talks said Tuesday. Mediator Qatar has negotiations for the closest point yet to sealing the deal. The US, Egypt, and Qatar has spent the past year trying to mediate to an end to the 15-month war and secure the release of dozens of hostages captured in the Hamas October 7, 2023 attack that triggered it. Some 100 Israelis are still captive inside Gaza. Officials have expressed mounting optimism that they can conclude an agreement ahead of the January 20 inauguration of the US President-elect Donald Trump, whose Mideast envoy has joined the negotiations. Today we are at the closest point ever to having a deal, Hamas said in a statement that the negotiations had reached their final stage. The offensive has reduced the territory to rubble and displaced around 90% of Gaza's population of 2.3 million, with hundreds of thousands packed into tent camps along the coast where hunger is widespread. Israeli minister threatens to quit cabinet over deal. Israeli far-right police minister threatened on Tuesday to quit Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government if he agrees to the Gaza ceasefire deal. Ben-Gvir, whose departure would not bring down Netanyahu's government, urged Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich to join him to prevent a deal. This move is our only chance to prevent execution and prevent Israel's surrender to Hamas after more than a year of bloody war, in which more than 400 IDF soldiers fell down in the Gaza Strip. The three mediators have given Hamas guarantees that negotiations will continue and they will press for a deal to implement the second and third phases before the end of the first. In the second phase, Hamas would release the remaining living captives, mainly male soldiers, in exchange for more prisoners and complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, according to draft agreement, but Hamas said it will not free the remaining hostages without an end to the war and a complete Israeli withdrawal. In the third phase, bodies of the remaining hostages would be returned in exchange for 3 to 5 year reconstruction plan to be carried out in Gaza under international supervision. BNP seeks Bangla polls by August, cites growing economic political stability. Dissanayake in Beijing on a 4-day visit. Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara Dissanayake. Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara Dissanayake arrived here on Tuesday on a 4-day visit during which he is scheduled to hold talks with the Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping and other Chinese leaders on deepening bilateral ties. Upon his arrival, the president was accorded a ceremonial welcome by Chinese military and he was formally received by China's Deputy Foreign Minister Shen Xiaodong. Minimum age for social media use likely soon. Indonesia plans to issue a regulation to set a minimum age for users on social media. Trump made criminal efforts to overturn polls, probe report. Meeting Trump's military spending target won't be easy, European defense ministers. The defense ministers of Europe, top 5 military spenders, said that they want to continue increasing investments in defense but described meeting President-elect Donald Trump's challenge for them to raise spending to 5% of their overall economic output as complicated. The defense ministers of Germany, France, Britain, Italy, and Poland came together near Warsaw for a meeting in a new format that they established after Trump was re-elected last year. Their first meeting in this format of 5 NATO members was held in Berlin late November. The five are seeking ways to maintain their support for Ukraine as US policy is expected to shift when Trump takes power. They also discussed how to strengthen Ukraine's own weapons production capacity. Russia ready to study Trump's ideas for ending war in Ukraine. Russia says it has detected a shift from US President-elect Donald Trump and his team towards recognizing the realities of ground in Ukraine and sees this as a welcome sign as it prepares to study his plan for ending the war. Kremlin says it is open to meeting between President Vladimir Putin and Trump, which the Republican would said on Monday would take place very quickly. NATO mission to save cables in sea. NATO countries will deploy frigates, patrol aircraft, and naval drones in the Baltic Sea to help protect critical infrastructure and reserve the right to take action against ships suspected of posing a security threat. The NATO alliance is taking the action in response to a string of incidents in which power cables, telecom links, and gas pipelines have damaged in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. A new age of US interference in Europe, Musk, Trump's MAGA movement. Make America Great Again movement seems to be intentionally sowing discord within US allies. For the past decade or more, Europe's governments have been trying to resist covert influence operations from adversaries like Russia and China. Now they are very different. Now they have a very different challenge, fending off overt efforts by Elon Musk and Donald Trump's MAGA movement to seize territory, oust elected leaders, and empower far right parties. Even before he retakes office, Trump is making threats to acquire territory of NATO allies like Canada and Denmark, and Musk, the president's elect biggest financial supporter, is using his social media platform X to bring far-right alternatives for Germany party and mainstream and smear the Britain's center-left Labour Party. This is not the first time Trump's ally has attempted to build a bridge between Europeans far-right. In 2018 and 2019, Trump's advisor Steve Bannon held meetings with far-right politicians across Europe, but the political landscape now is very different. The governments of Germany and France have collapsed, far-right parties are on rise in those countries, and are already in power in several other across the continent. Musk aggressively campaigned against Kamala Harris and interviewed Trump live on the platform. He is now deploying a similar playbook in Europe. In Britain, Musk revived a decade-old grooming gang scandal that unfolded while Prime Minister Keir Starmer, whose Labour Party is in power, was head of public prosecutions. According to British media, reports Musk is also considering a $100 million donation to Britain's far-right Reform Party, which would be the country's largest political donation ever. The party's leader, Nigel Farage, one of the chief campaigners for Brexit, has met Trump several times, most recently in Florida last month. MAGA hates Starmer. Former Trump administration officials said, MAGA loves Meloni, he added, referring to Italy's right-wing PM Giorgia Meloni, as long as she meets her deportation targets. In Germany, which is holding snap federal elections in next month. Delhi and Valley. Center's infra push in Jammu and Kashmir is welcome. Whether and how it fulfills its promises, economic and political, will be watched. After the abrogation of Article 370, Center gave the impression of doubling down on the erstwhile state's economic development while seeking to insulate it from pull and tug of democratic politics. While the later part of its strategy was controversial and questionable, the assembly election of September October came not a moment too soon. The former, the development push, is welcome. The Narendra Modi government recognized the importance of tourism in generating employment, supporting small businesses, and improving Jammu and Kashmir finances. This was accompanied by the understanding that region needs to address critical issues related to infrastructure. The center has initiated road development initiatives worth more than 40,000 crore, including four national highway projects. The infrastructure push has continued after the Union Territory voted the National Conference, a member of opposition, a member of the opposition India bloc, to office. On Monday, as PM Modi inaugurated the Sonmarg tunnel in Kashmir, he pointed to a meeting ground between Jammu and Kashmir and the center. It's time for all of us to realize our dreams and make resolutions and accomplish targets together. If his overtures to the center after the October verdict are any indication, Chief Minister Omar Abdullah too seems to have been nudged by the responsibility cast on him by the mandate to work closely with the Modi-led center. The pleasantries exchanged CM Abdullah and PM Modi, evident at the public rally to mark the launch of the tunnel, are a calming sign in landscape ravaged by decades of militancy. The people are asking me, When will Jammu and Kashmir gets the status of state? My heart is saying very well, very soon. The Prime Minister will fulfill his promise to the people of Jammu and Kashmir as well, and Jammu and Kashmir will be a state again. The non-confrontational tone is consistent with the approach Abdullah has adopted since October, even as he has come under pressure from within his party and outside over his government's limited powers. He has maintained that restoration of statehood remains his government's priority, but at the same time, he does not doubt the center's intentions. On January 3, for instance, while pointing out that PM Modi had himself committed to the restoration of statehood of J&K, Jammu and Kashmir CM said he wanted to give the centers the first opportunity to do so rather than going to courts. Abdullah, of course, is being pragmatic as he put it earlier this month. Jammu and Kashmir runs a deficit budget, therefore, we are more dependent on the government of India than the other states and UTs. On Monday, PM Modi refrained from giving a time frame for restoring J&K statehood, even as he said that the distance between Delhi and Valley has been erased. Everything has a time, the right things will happen at the right time. His government will be closely watched in Jammu and Kashmir and outside it on how he fulfills his commitments, economic as well as political. Unsporting spirit. The variable pay idea is a non-cricketing solution to a cricketing problem. It's a cliche in cricket, numbers are not everything, but they could turn out to be everything if the cricket board ratifies the proposed performance-based pay structure, which was floated in the review meetings after India's defeat in Australia. The number of zeros on players' checks could correspond to the number of wickets they pick up or the runs they score. If they don't meet the expected standards, they could potentially face a pay cut. The hours need is ideas to reroute Indian cricket back to its glory days, not to formulate algebraic equations for performance metrics. Unlike in the corporate world, there are no set in stone targets to judge a performance. It's a fascinating complexity of the game that some statistics could be interpreted in multiple ways. A century in the second innings on flat deck against tiring bowlers could be inferior to fourth innings 40 on a ranked Turner. A three-wicket burst by a pacer on a dead pitch could be more valuable than a six for on a green top. How would an umpiring howler leading to a low-score dismissal be tabulated on the account sheet? The game is bound by too many variables to be imprisoned by numbers. B for better. The generation wars are hotting up, but they really need not. Aristotle, Horace, bosses, and parents have all complained about kids these days. In Paris Fashion Cultural History, republished letter from Town and Country magazine in 1771 reads, a race of effeminate, self-admiring, emancipate, emasculate emaciated Fribbles can never have descended in a direct line from the heroes of Poitiers and Agincourt. Recently, hustle culture CEOs have made similar assertion, and Narayan Murthy employed young people to work 70 hours week last year. Into this chaos entered Generation Beta this year, which will include Generation Beta, all children born between 2025 and 2039. Reductive listicles that promise to give a fixed address in a particular generation through pop culture references reflect the impulse to categorize the young and old into neat pockets. The arrival of a new group into the workforce or society brings with it a hope and apprehension over the possible disruption. The innumerable articles on surveys on whether Gen Z and Y and X before it make the worst workers are evidence. In India and across the world, cultivating the demographic dividend that is ensuring the young are gainfully employed and contributing to national growth and cohesion remains an area of focus. The future rests on the shoulders of the young, after all, but the vocabulary of generations is woven together by vibes, not science. Of course, some experiences like wars and large technological changes inform the values of the generation, but studies have dispelled The myth that the generation formula is an accurate tool for identifying coherent cultural or attitudinal shifts. As generational beta comes of age, it is prudent to remember that disruption is not always a bad thing. The young bring with them fresh ideas. Kids these days are much like the kids that came before them. For those still on the fence, a skinny versus baggy jeans quiz may provide clarity on redundancy of age wars. Manmohan's India, the importance of his recognition of plurality remains as strong today as it has always been. To say Manmohan Singh was a great man would be to state the obvious. He was a brilliant political leader, a visionary thinker, an outstanding economist, a superb academic and fabulous leader of administration, splendid husband, father, and grandfather, and an immeasurably sympathetic human being. We were extraordinarily happy that at the Delhi School of Economics, when we successfully persuaded Manmohan to join us, he was terrific teacher and darling to the students, but he also had time to talk with his colleagues. I have been immensely privileged to having the opportunity of interacting with Manmohan in his many different roles. First as a fellow student, then as an international civil servant, then as wonderful colleague at Delhi School of Economics, and then as senior civil servant. Following by the time he was running the International South Commission based in Geneva, then as statesman, including having his time most innovative finance minister in history of modern India, and finally as the prime minister. Other than feeling good about Manmohan's failure to educate me to his level of courtesy, I wish he had been less educated in modesty himself and spoke more often. He had hugely important things to say to India and to the world. It would have been wonderful if some of the things that figured with inescapable hesitation in his private conversation had figured more and in greater length in his public statements. Manmohan had the same well mannered reticence everywhere, but he could be amazingly eloquent and profound when pushed. The only occasion I have had the privilege of dining next to Michelle Obama was when the Obamas gave the first ever gala dinner in White House in honor of Manmohan. I had wonderful placing at Manmohan's guest. Michelle asked Manmohan repeatedly to say what he thought on various subjects and got extraordinarily illuminating answers. I wish someone as brilliant as Michelle Obama had done a one on one conversation with Manmohan for sharing with the world. Manmohan's understanding of the great need for humanity and social justice in India comes back to me whenever I think about these persistent problems. I know Manmohan is mainly thought of an architect of economic liberalization of India, which he certainly was, we almost note but we must also note that he never lost sight of the need for equity in economic progress in particular of increasing employment and income for the poor. Cultivating rich and super rich plutocrats was never his priority. I wish Manmohan could have done more on elementary health care for all and in expanding general education and also more in removing the inequities of caste division. It is particularly unfortunate that he achieved considerably less than he wanted in these areas and could not get the practical policies of India more excited about these objectives. These are areas in which Manmohan could have fruitfully been less reticent, especially in making his private concerns more public. We often had discussions on Ambedkar's vision of India, but that vision did not receive as much attention in Manmohan's speeches through his frustration, though his frustration did not get an airing. To move to another area, Manmohan's focus on secularism was extraordinarily firm. Both his private conversation and his public priorities reflected that strongly. As the commitment to secularism has weakened in India and religion has entered into an Indian politics in a big way, Manmohan's secular priorities are especially important to recall. His clear understanding of the necessity of unity in India remains strikingly important today. The distinction between religion and religious politics was important for Manmohan. In addition to keeping religion out of politics, there was another aspect to Manmohan's religion Neutrality. Religion was important for Manmohan, including religious customs. When I went to his room in St. John's College in 1956, I remember stumbling against his freshly washed turbans, which he had hung across his room in an attempt to dry them. But his Sikh identity was never in tension with his supportive acceptance for other people's religion and religiosity. When a long time ago I talked with Manmohan on this, I remember thinking that this is quite a different aspect of religion neutrality from a standard secularism of keeping religion out of politics. Religion was important for Manmohan, including religious customs. When I went to his room in St. John's College in 1956, I remember stumbling against his freshly washed turbans, which he had hung across his room in an attempt to dry them. But his Sikh identity was never in tension with his supporting acceptance of other people's religion and religiosity. When a long time ago I talked with Manmohan on this, I remember thinking that this is quite a different aspect of religion neutrality from standard secularism of keeping religion out of politics. This different form of religion neutrality reminded me rather than rather of a remark of Gautam Buddha in one of his favorite Sanskrit books, Vajra Chedika Prajanna Paramita Sutra, which in its Chinese translation by Kumara Jiva, done in 401 AD, had the distinction of becoming the first printed book in the world. In the book, often known as Diamond Sutra, Buddha told his disciple Subhuti, those who set forth on the path of Bodhisattva, know, see and believe all dharma, but know, see and believe them without being attached to the perception of one singular dharma. Since Buddha included atheism and agnosticism among possible dharmas, I could form Manmohan that I too could count on his support if he were to go along the path of Bodhisattva, which his good behavior indicated he had been doing. The importance of Manmohan's recognition of the plurality that surrounds us remains as strong today as it has always been. I so much wish that his vision will remain an indispensable part of the understanding of what we are. We will not take Manmohan's modest hesitation as an answer. Why myths become facts? Historians are not to blame for WhatsApp history. Disregard for scholarship is. A social media debate has at the center of it the the behemoth called WhatsApp history. Author William Dalry Darrell Author William D. is in an interview and more recently YouTuber, and his historian Ruchika Sharma in an article in his new in the this newspaper accused Indian professional historians and their ivory towers of the rise of WhatsApp history in this country. However, neither of them clearly defined WhatsApp history. What we test the veracity Before we test the veracity of their claims, it is imperative to know what WhatsApp history is. In short, WhatsApp history refers to circulation of historical knowledge about past and conversations about it, often distorted on social media. This include YouTube videos, Instagram reels, threads, etc. What has termed WhatsApp history, however, is not unique to India. Something similar called TikTok history exists in United States of America. It is claimed that language and circulation is hindrance to reach the general public. However, specifically, the Indian professional historians has for generations written textbooks for schools' competitive examination and had played a crucial role in framing of history curricula across the nation. They have also written for newspapers with regional and national circulations, appeared in courtrooms, and have influenced policy decisions. The Indian historian has continuously stepped out of this so called ivory tower isolation to wear the hat of a public intellectual to write popular history books. The rise of WhatsApp history has nothing to do with work of a professional historian. WhatsApp history thrives on creating alternative narratives and their allure in present. Its reach is relevant on the social context in which the recognition of truth is challenged. If there is a reason behind the rise of WhatsApp history, then it is the conditions that make it possible. The gradual erosion of culture of learning and the destruction of universities as space of learning. It is stunning to see that history as business thrives when history as learning struggles due to low enrollment and lack of research funding almost everywhere. The Indian historian is not facing a unique crisis, but also is part of a problem that goes beyond simple solutions like myth busting, fact checking, reel making. This is where we need to understand that history communication need not always be replacement for history education. The Indian historian is not fighting a lonely battle. As historian Manan Ahmed points out, the challenge that previously colonized subject faces while writing history is twofold. Colonial epistemology as foundational to disciplinary knowledge and originary myths that tell histories without the feel of myths as such. If we need to dismantle colonial epistemology, that we have to engage with it, and if we want to move beyond originary myths, then we need to disrupt the nature as histories that feel natural, or as Ahmed says, lived in. The current generation of Indian professional historians continue to do his work, often writing for general audience. In a world where myths masquerade as facts, the Indian professional historian cannot only make history content for social media. Historical knowledge thrives on meticulous research that more often informs popular history books. Delhi must look beyond H1B. India's diplomacy will have key role in finding common ground between its strategic interest and Trump's tech policy in the next 4 years. C. Raja Mohan. Raj Mandla by C. Raja Mohan. The Indian debate on Donald Trump's section White House term must look beyond the H-1B controversy raging in America. While exporting technical talent remains a top political and policy priority for Delhi, the broader implications of Trump's technology policies are arguably more significant. America's renewed tech boom under Trump promises to reshape the domestic use of technology, deepen political polarization between liberals and conservatives in Western societies, accelerate economic growth in US, extend America's lead over geopolitical rivals, and transform global governance of emerging technologies. But let us address Indian concerns about H-1B visas. Worrying about the American debate is futile since Delhi has little influence over its outcome. The H-1B visa system, part of broader immigration debate in America, pits US businesses against growing domestic resistance to rapid increase in foreign populations. Given America's labor shortages in agriculture and healthcare and technology, commercial interests strongly support immigration. Meanwhile, anti-immigration sentiment across American political structure remains a persistent force. The traditional left argues that immigration depresses wages and favors capital over labor. In contrast, the liberal left advocates welcoming immigrants based on humanitarian and universalist principles. The conservative backlash against unrestricted immigration pushed by the Democrats has been a key factor in Trump's victory. Trump quickly aligned with business interests, emphasized how skilled immigration maintains America's scientific and technological edge. Both sides now acknowledge that US immigration system needs reform. The challenge for traditional left argues that immigration depresses wages and favors capital over labor. In contrast, liberal left advocates welcoming immigrants based on humanitarian and universalist principles. The conservative backlash against unrestricted immigration pushed by Democrats has been a key factor in Trump's victory. Trump quickly aligned with business interests, emphasizing how skilled immigration maintains America's scientific and technological edge. Both sides now acknowledge that US immigration system needs reform. The challenge that American policy now lies in balancing support for skilled legal immigration while curtailing illegal entry. India is unlikely to lose in this scenario. As the US tech industry's demand for imported talent continues, with India remaining the largest source. However, Delhi must cooperate more in preventing illegal Indian immigration while supporting merit based legal immigration. Beyond H 1B visas, Trump is likely to bring three major changes to American technology policy. First, domestic political dimension. Recent years have shown that technology, far from being neutral in political disputes, have significantly influenced the battles between liberals and conservatives. Republicans, especially Trump supporters, have long accused Facebook and Twitter of liberal bias and censoring conservative views since acquiring Twitter and rebranding it as X. Musk has actively worked to reverse this bias. Facebook, the following, has followed suit, with Mark Zuckerberg acknowledging a decade-long pressure to accommodate demands by the liberal and democratic establishment. President Joe Biden has strongly criticized Facebook's decision to eliminate fact checkers and adopt X community notes approach for context. The subjective nature of fact checking is well known. Trump's victory will likely shift this balance towards conservatives, a shift that will extend beyond America. Musk's involvement in British and European politics has initiated a major Western conflict on perceived liberal hegemony. The European left, long comfortable with ideological interventions through liberal internationalism, now faces opposition from tech backed cross border conservative coalitions. The Western ideological struggle will inevitably envelop other democracies. A second feature for Trump's second term is the emergence of techno libertarians. While conservatives traditionally advocate for limited government, these techno libertarians actively champion dismantling the existing administrative state in the US and West. Trump's decision to appoint Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to lead the mission on massively downsized government reflects his ideological commitment to unleashing the potential of new technologies. Alongside other techno-libertarians like PayPal founder Peter Thiel, Musk and Ramaswamy advocate removing bureaucratic oversight of emerging technologies. This approach is most likely to result in a reversal of Biden's AI regulation policies. While Biden prioritized safety, ethics and accountability in AI development, Trump and his techno-libertarian allies seek to remove bureaucratic constraints and unleash innovation's full potential in the US. The third aspect of Trump's tech policy will be intensified competition with China. His first term broke the long-standing American consensus on deeper US-China ties, while Biden focused on confronting China's challenges, placing US technology at the core of this strategy. Biden has implemented extensive technology sanctions against China, tightening restrictions through last week. His strategy includes reshoring and friendshoring technology supply chains while increasing investment in defense technologies. Biden has sought engagement with China on AI to prevent unrestricted arms race. The team shares Biden's goal of reasserting US technological leadership over China. All signs point out to increased domestic tech development and stronger constraints on China. Emphasizing peace through strength, the Trump team is likely to pursue aggressive military AI development, possibly with less concern for ethical considerations. On autonomous weapons, their plans for Manhattan projects in military technology indicates a major push for defense-oriented AI. Parts of Trump's team have criticized Biden's approach of engaging Beijing while competing with China. The hawks in the Trump's administration have less time for idea of engagement and would want to go full tilt at confronting China. The new administration will likely show less consideration for arms control ideas inherited from the Cold War in managing AI's military implications. Trump will probably favor a policy of pursuing unilateral advantages in the AI field over multilateral approaches. It remains to be seen how focused Trump would be on sustaining Biden's policy of reshoring and friendshoring of tech supply chains and building geotechnological coalitions with friends and allies. The emphasis on advanced technological collaboration with India, both bilateral and unilateral, was its signature strategic theme. What about Trump's well known predilection and the big deal with Xi Jinping? Trump will seek to put his personal stamp on relations with China and will seek to explore a grand bargain. Some Trump allied tech entrepreneurs, including Musk, have Chinese business interests. Will they back Trump's quest for accommodation with Beijing? all American administrations deal with competing interests and imperatives on foreign policy, especially on relations with other great powers. Trump's inclination for a deal with China is likely to be constrained by the structural contradictions between the world's foremost powers. It will also not be easy to dismantle the range of US technology sanctions against China in the last few years. Meanwhile, the convergence of three factors, current turning point in the history of technological development, America's enduring capacity for rapid innovation, and Trump's political will and capability to promote global change could reshape the international systems, social, economic, and geopolitical dynamics. Whether one likes or not, India's tech talent is integral to the first two factors. Delhi's diplomacy will play a key role in finding a common ground between India's strategic interest and Trump's tech policy in the next 4 years. Crisis in California is a reminder of our place in the world, lines that we must not presume to cross. In allegations against Neil Gaiman, a reminder that writers are made of stories. Why would anyone want to live in California? Once it was earthquake, social and economic ills. Today it is devastating fires raging through Southern California. Why California? Suffice to say, for some of us, there isn't an American dream, but specifically a California dream. Family and friends around the world watch the news and remember us asking if we are safe, and we in turn remember friends closer to the fires. We are packed and ready to evacuate, they say. The state of readiness and helplessness is now a part of life here. It is always the smell that warns us first, just as it had for our ancestors. Sometimes a hit of woody smoke like religious ceremony, sometimes a nasty hint of burnt plastic. Once in September 2020, the sky stayed dark all day. Smoke from one up north had mixed with the Bay Area fog, like the Blade Runner apocalyptic like the movies but real. Fires began small last semester, a plume of smoke over the Oakland hills, properly damaged but no lives lost. But a few years before that, the opposite, a respected colleague and friend gone in his own home, there is a sense of precariousness. But then, each day that passes without disaster, we feel grateful for California. The Pacific Ocean on the rim, the mountains all around, here the perfect place and the recipe that they say for the perfect disaster: incompetence, a corruption, narcissistic aggrandizement, all the ills of the world. As a family doctor who came here in the 1961 said, everything good and everything bad in America has started in California. The world we know today is made in California. Hollywood pronounced the American dream for global consumption. Silicon Valley now puts it out and untackable addictive networks and screens you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. Ironic then that companies and long-time residents are fleeing San Francisco. Author Michael Schellenberger writes that 18,000 companies have left. His book is subtitled Why Progressive Ruin Cities, and many victims of the fires will agree. But then others will agree that America's polarization is not just about politics but reality itself. For the sight of thousands of homes burning is a proof of climate change. For others, the problem is wokeism and the replacement of merit with identity politics. The Democrats cut water to save a fish habitat so that hydrants would dry. Hollywood mocked God at an awards ceremony. Facts are hard to deny, decency even harder. Human suffering hardly registers over predetermined put downs. The fire was karma for Gaza. Look at California now, despite its GDP. Decades ago, media scholar Joshua Merowitz wrote an influential book on television called No Sense of Place. With social media, it seems we have no sense of place, time, and truth. One moment, we are with actor James Wood, who talks about watching through home security cameras as the fire comes closer. The next moment, video of Hollywood sign shooting up in flames appears. The crisis in California is not of this place alone, but of our place in this world at this time. Competence in human interaction let alone civic management grounded in consensus on the sanctity of life, all seem to lost in the social media age. But real life is flawed too. A friend runs for a city council position and knocks on voters' door. What do they ask? Not about the fire risk in the neighborhood from dried out trees, but your stand on divestment and Israel. Resolutions about India's Citizenship Amendment Act millions of US taxpayer dollars on DEI programs to address non-existent outbreak of caste discrimination by Hindus in America. California has no sense of place left nor a memory of cultural and spiritual promise it once upheld. What we should confront before the next fire, earthquake, stampede, or disaster strike is the truth about how much we are ruled by pseudo casualty today. The day we fight the courage to say, "Where there is smoke, there is fire," and not Zionism or Hindutva, is the day reality can raise its head again, and the day we can address the world as the Maoist in Tongva or Bhudevi in Telugu again is the day we will know our place in it again.